There's never been much difficulty in getting farmers onto the streets in a united front in mass demonstrations. The agricultural lobby is now a most formidable one. Farmers can help shape opinions and indeed influence government decisions. But is there a block farmers' vote? And if there is, might this farmers' vote actually decide the outcome of the next election?
Well, the answer to both those questions must be a very emphatic yes. The block farmer vote emerged in significant terms in the last two elections, particularly 1977. In that election, Fine Gael suffered massive defections from farmers throughout the country. They lost seats in constituencies like Louth, Carlow, Kilkenny, Lee Shoffley. In fact, even in a constituency like Kildare, the late Jerry Sweetman's old stamping ground. In fact, the very heartland of traditional Fine Gael, after 1977, not a single Fine Gael deputy in that constituency.
It would be naive in the extreme to think that the recent farmer demonstrations were merely spontaneous reactions to the current recession. No, in the forefront of the minds of farmer strategists right now must be the fact that the time has never been more opportune for demanding direct political action. The government's term has less than 18 months to run, and the whiff of a general election is very definitely in the air. Fianna Fáil headquarters, Mount Street, Dublin. It's from here that the great party machine is directed, keeping a benevolent eye on all who enter, the founding father, one of the greatest vote-getters of all time. For new General Secretary Frank Wall, who started on the first day of the new year, two immediate, very formidable tasks: the organisation of next month's Ardèche and filling the shoes of a predecessor who is acknowledged as being the principal architect of the greatest electoral victory in the history of the state. Mount Street is undoubtedly a most political of streets. Literally across the way, the opposition. Fine Gael headquarters. And one lesson learned by Fine Gael in 1977, if you're serious about competing with Fianna Fáil, you've got to be just as professional.
Hi girls, how's it going? We want to get that out this evening.
Peter Prendergast, Fine Gael General Secretary since the last election, has gone a long way in injecting a similar professionalism into a party machine that for too long tended to trundle along on the momentum of old-style politics. But even so, Fine Gael is still smarting from that 1977 humiliation, in which the party lost heavily throughout the country. Here in the Wexford four-seater, the Fine Gael vote dropped by 7.5%. Many farmers, traditional Fine Gael voters, defected to Fianna Fáil in significant numbers. And the evidence is that this wasn't just a decision taken without consultation by individual farmers. No, if ever there was a case of a block vote being delivered, it was here in Wexford.
But just 2 days before the last general election, more than 400 County Wexford farmers crammed into the canteen here at the Enniscorthy Mart. At issue that day, the findings of the IFA questionnaire, which had been sent to all the political parties. And while some of the farmers here that day did decide to vote as they'd always done, many traditional Fine Gaelers, some of them who'd actually been members of General O'Duffy's Blue Shirts, did decide there and then to break ranks, to cross over and vote Fianna Fáil.
I can't afford to follow my father's footsteps now. Simple as that. In the old days, people lived differently, they were more loyal to parties, and they just stuck on to where their fathers were, they stuck on, but we couldn't do that now.
If the Fine Gael party were to come to you and say, Mr. Doyle, we'd like your support once again and the support of other farmers, what should we do? What would you say to them?
Well, speaking for myself, Nick, I would say to them, first of all, I think they would have to give me an undertaking that it was going to be a Fine Gael government or a Fine Gael opposition. I think nothing else would be tolerated by myself and a lot of farmers I know in the county.
And if Fine Gael decide not to go alone at the next election, what do you think will be the reaction of farmers in this county?
Well, the reaction, as far as I'm concerned, again, would be very much against.
The old Redmondite tradition ran strong in Fine Gael in Wexford, but that's now changed. The present TD, Michael Darcy, is a local farmer with newly acquired kudos as Fine Gael agriculture spokesman. With an extra 5th seat in Wexford next election, Fine Gael are going all out to get 2 seats, with a virtual canvass already underway.
Greg.
Hello, David.
How are you?
How are you?
You're very welcome.
Listen, you know Colin.
Hello, David. How are you?
Colin.
Very well.
We're canvassing for the Fine Gael six-point plan
Yes.
on agriculture.
Yes.
And we'd hope you'd support it. And also, if you'd allow us to canvass the staff here.
Yeah, sure. Certainly.
You know what it's about.
I do.
You've probably seen some on the newspapers,
Yeah.
television. So perhaps you'd like to sign the petition yourself.
Oh, I will certainly.
The lesson that has been learned from the 77 general election as far as parties are concerned is that the electorate can no longer be taken for granted, particularly the farming community. We learned a very severe lesson in 77, and I believe that the position that things are in at the moment, that we can get back the support from the agricultural community in particular. But I believe that we're the only party in Dáil Éireann who have offered short-term policies which will take us out of the present crisis, and I believe the farmers realise this and realise it fully. And on top of that, when the next general election is announced, Nicholas, we will have a long-term policy for the agricultural community.
As far as farmers are concerned now, is it a case of really, from their point of view, saying to the two parties, show us what you've got to offer and we make our choice, rather than I'm going to vote the way my father did?
No, I don't accept that, Nick, because the younger farmers in particular are prepared to look at the policies intelligently. That's what's important, and I believe our policies are intelligent. Our policies during the coalition government were intelligent, and they worked, and brought good development to agriculture, not only to agriculture, but to the entire industry within the country, related to agriculture.
Even though the farmers of County Wexford didn't think that they worked that well in 1977?
Fair enough. The one big issue in 77 was tax. People realised not alone are they paying tax. Now, they paid tax in 77 that was related to income. Today they're paying tax that is not related to income, such as the levies, resource tax, and those type of taxes. Rates, levies, and resource tax.
Across the Shannon, it's a rather different tale. In Wexford, the problems that farmers have are about income tax and bank interest rates. But in Mayo, the old problems were poverty and immigration. For generations, thousands of Mayo boys and girls left for the emigrant ship from this railway station here at Ballina. For many of them, in fact, it would be the last time that they'd ever actually set foot in County Mayo soil. But today, that's a trend not only ended, but in actual fact reversed. Today, the people no longer are leaving as before, now they're actually coming back. Farming isn't the back-breaking, demanding chore that it used to be, and perhaps even more importantly, industry has come to the region. And so too has that most prestigious of status symbols in the West, the ministerial car. But every TD in the West knows that the trappings of office count for naught if you don't keep in touch with the grassroots.
This is an important meeting. It's the last opportunity we will have a meeting before the Ardesh. And on the agenda tonight, we will have the selection of delegates to that Ardesh. But before we get on to that, I would like to ask the Minister, Sean Calleary, to say a few words. Sean.
Mr. Chairman, Deputy Councillor, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank the Cháithín Cumann for the invitation to come and speak to you here tonight and to share some of your problems.
More than 80% of the farmers in East Mayo are part-timers, often a more delicate way of saying that they're eligible for the farmer's dole. The fruits of the CAP have fallen less abundantly on these people than their counterparts in the East. And for both Sean Calleary and PJ Morley, the general election campaign started the day after Fianna Fáil will return to office. East Mayo is the most marginal constituency in the country. In 1977, a mere 0.6% separated the two parties.
Point of view as it applied to the very, very big farmer. And we know to our cost that the policies that were good for the big man were not necessarily good for the small man. And Ray McSherry has, for the first time, put emphasis on the small man, and I think that Donegal proved that he was correct, and I will look forward to seeing East Mayo and West Mayo proving also that he was correct, and the farming vote coming out strongly and stronger than ever for Fianna Fáil in the next general election.
But even party loyalists can no longer be counted on for unquestioning support. Billy Heffron, with 80 acres, is a substantial dairy farmer by local standards. He's chairman of his local Fianna Fáil Cumann. He's also made a working loss on his farm for the past 2 years. And quite simply, he blames his own party.
Well,
Well, it would affect in the sense that I have campaigned since I had the vote, and I would doubt very much if I would campaign now in the next election. I feel we have been badly done by the government, and as a young farmer that has developed and has borrowed considerable money, I feel I've been let down.
What are the issues that affect farmers in this part of East Mayo?
Well, the issues in East Mayo will be much different to what you'll find in Kildare or Meath, an absolute contrast altogether. I think there are small problems where we say the headage payments, these are a big issue, and the price of store cattle at the moment is an issue. That type of thing, where that would not affect the man in the Midlands. The resource tax now is not an issue here, or income tax for that matter is not an issue at the moment.
I know it's a phrase that might offend some people, but handouts have always been important around here, haven't they?
Oh yes, yes they have. It's tradition here. We have dole is dished out fairly freely, but then again when we realise the type of area we're in, there's no other way for survival.
How would you describe voting, traditional voting patterns in this constituency?
Oh, traditional votings here are changing, not maybe as fast as in other parts of the country. And traditional Fianna Fáil people have taken these allegiances from their fathers and mothers. But the younger people coming along today are changing very fast. And they're looking for something in each election, and they're pretty definite about what they're looking for.
Well, now you, a lifelong Fianna Fáil supporter, have decided not to campaign in the next election. Is there a message in this to your own party?
Yes, I think there is a clear message that we have got to look at the development of agriculture here and see how the progressive people are being affected. You see, this is much different to the last depression. It's the developing farmer that's affected now. And he is the man, I think, whom the government of the day should look after.
Well, now, you're not going to campaign, but could I put it to you, would you ever envisage a situation where you might commit the ultimate heresy and actually vote for Fine Gael?
I don't think that's at all a possibility. I think I just couldn't vote for Fine Gael in the present climate, because they would have to have a coalition with Labour. And as far as I am concerned, as a farmer, Labour are out to cut my throat, and that's it.
Up to 1977, the general election of 1977, there wasn't such a thing as a block farming vote, irrespective of how they felt between elections. When it came to actually voting on election day, farmers returned to their traditional party allegiance. But that disappeared in 1977. There was a block farming vote. And when I speak of a block farming vote, I mean a substantial number of farmers voting in a specific direction for specific farm reasons. That happened in 1977, and I think that's going to be a feature of all elections in future. In other words, I'm saying the farmers can deliver a substantial vote in one way or the other.
The farming vote in Ireland is every bit as volatile, every bit as movable as its urban counterpart. So that's the major point.
Traditional loyalties no longer count in the way that they used to?
Well, I believe that to be increasingly so. Traditionally, the farmers of Ireland were, and to a certain extent I suppose still are, more than urban, but they're the most loyal party supporters in the country. But there are clear signs over the last decade or so that they're standing back a little piece and making up their own minds on the day.
I feel that the farmer vote is becoming increasingly sophisticated. Historically, farmers treated politicians like the way they treated a local football team. They cheered for it, right or wrong. I think the emergence of MOCRA in the 40s and the growth of IFA and ICMSA and the general strength of organised farmers have made people look at policies rather than old Civil War politics. And that is a fact of life now. It's increasingly so, and it's a very healthy situation.
Did this, in your opinion, manifest itself in recent general elections?
Certainly it manifested itself in the last general election, no doubt about that. There was a significant shift. I know a lot of the people who changed sides, and the important thing is that those people are prepared to change sides again, to assess the policies and see who's going to deliver the goods.
And undoubtedly for many farmers, one man whom they believe could deliver those goods is former IFA President TJ Maher. And whatever about political ideology, Mr. Maher is certainly not lacking in that most vital of political commodities, charisma. The time was never more ripe for Maher to spearhead a new political departure. And all the major parties must view with some trepidation Mr. Maher's political emergence.
Well, the first thing that must be said about TJ Maher is that he is and has been an outstanding farmers' leader. And more important indeed in the context in which we're speaking, he's also a very popular farmers' leader. But I think it all goes back to the fact that the farmers are now organised. They have a very sophisticated communication system. They are very well served by the media, probably better served than any section of the community by the media. They can deliver in a certain direction. They can concentrate their powers, and their powers can be concentrated, if they so wish, on a person like TJ Maher.
The fact that 83,000 people deserted the established political parties in June '79 and went over to someone who had no connection with the parties, I think we can't play that down either. It was significant that that amount of people in one constituency deserted the established parties. And there was clearly, in my view, a message in that for the established political parties, and that message is that you don't take the voters for granted. I think that message was learned with the urban voters many years ago. I think it's now being learned about the farming vote. You don't take the farming vote of Ireland for granted.
TJ Maher is a man of immense knowledge on the European scene. This was very apparent during the run-up and the actual European election situation. I think some of the other parties didn't treat the European election too seriously. We had the phenomena of, well, old age pensioners, in fact, running for seats. And I think the farmers showed that they were quite sophisticated and knew what they were about, and knew that TJ Maher certainly could articulate a case in the Parliament, and had a knowledge of the Common Agricultural Policy, which was very deficient, in fact, in a great number of the other candidates running.
I can tell you that your presence is vital, because it cannot be ignored. The government cannot ignore a massive outturn of people on a Saturday afternoon in Kilkenny, because they're inclined to think, well, damn it, if they're that upset, what are they going to do when they get to the ballot box? Of course, I hope you do the right thing when you get to the ballot box.
But at that ballot box, will they have an opportunity for voting for a new party led by TJ Maher?
That I cannot say at the moment. No decision has been made about that idea. It's but an idea so far.
But given the atmosphere that prevails in the country at present, these mass street demonstrations, you must be under quite a degree of pressure from farmers, from people in agriculture, to go ahead with this new party.
Yes, there are many people who are quite enthusiastic about this idea, not only farmers, but indeed other people as well in the community. But that doesn't mean that action will be taken on it. I cannot say, at least at this moment, what will happen.
I think one of the big dangers is that supposing farmers do get involved somehow in a political operation, I think that I would be very sorry and sad indeed if I saw farm organisations used in the worst sense of the word to achieve political expedient for people with ambitions in that line, because there's a danger then that we would dilute our function as a farm organisation, and that in fact we would get involved or water down our policies to attract votes from people who are not farmers, and that would be extremely dangerous for farmers.
Well, it's very, very difficult to speculate at this moment of time, because we don't know what type of party he would have. We'd want to know answers to, will it be urban-based as well as rural-based, and in particular, the quality of the candidates he might put up. But there's no doubt about it. We must be honest about this. If TJ Maher does run, he will have a significant influence on the election. In particular, he'll have an influence as far as winning a number of seats, but also he could very well influence the outcome of a far greater number of seats than he would in fact win himself.
Well, a lot depends on the climate at the time of an election. If there was any sort of a deep disillusionment with established political parties, then I think Mr. Maher could be the beneficiary of that disillusionment. But any damage he would do political parties, I believe myself, would be fairly temporary and only in a very few constituencies. I think the tasks in forming, organising and winning elections in constituencies, it's a mammoth task, and one Mr. Maher, I'd say, and I suspect by his sheer hesitancy in making any announcement, he's beginning to realise, and it's beginning to dawn on him, the mammoth task it is. I also feel that trying to develop a political party around one very competent individual is too narrow a base. He would need to develop his philosophy and put it before the people.
But irrespective of what Mr. Maher decides to do, the principal battles will, as usual, be fought by the three main parties. And if recent trends are anything to go by, all three will mount highly personalised campaigns.
The Labour Party has never made any significant electoral impression on our farmers, and really no one expects that next time round things will be any different. Nonetheless, a new policy document on agriculture is almost completed, evidence that it won't be merely a token appeal that the Labour Party will be making to the country's farmers. Most people have forgotten that 20 years ago, the Labour Party had only one Dublin-based deputy. Its strength then lay in rural Ireland. But things have changed considerably since William Norton's day. Even the most tepid socialism is too unpalatable for most farmers. Everyone, including party leader Frank Plusky, admits that the Labour Party has a formidable task on its hands. More often than not, when dealing with farmers, they expend more energy explaining away the myths that exist in farmers' minds regarding the Labour Party than they actually do in getting the message of their basic policies across. It certainly suits Fianna Fáil and to a lesser degree Fine Gael that many farmers believe the myth that a Labour government would nationalise and collectivise agriculture. But it's a rare sight to see Mr. Plusky rubbing shoulders with farmers, and he's certainly under no illusions about the difficulties facing them.
One of the difficulties we've had is that there's been kind of a mental block between the farming community and the Labour Party. I'm not blaming the farming community entirely on this. I think some of the blame lies with the Labour Party. But we have been working over the last 4 years in trying to rectify this and to show farmers that we are aware of their importance to the whole national scene, to the whole economy, and that we're also acutely aware of the difficulties which they face.
In the run into the election, what strategy will you be adopting to try and make a significant breakthrough into the farming vote?
To try and specify the areas in which we know they have genuine difficulties, and also to tell them the truth. I think that this is something that people who live on the land appreciate. Not that you're trying to cajole them, telling them that you're going to give them this, that and the other just for the purpose of getting their electoral support, but telling them that you have a realistic assessment of what their genuine difficulties are, and that in those areas you're prepared to help them to the best of your ability.
Well, let me be very specific. There are a lot of farmers, as you know, in this country, whether it's true or false, who actually believe if there was a Labour Party in power that they'd nationalise their land.
Yes, well, that's totally untrue. We've never advocated nationalisation of land. We don't now, and we will not in the future. So it's totally false.
And of course, the question that not only the farmers are waiting to hear the answer to, but everybody, will there be a pre-election deal between yourself and Dr. Fitzgerald and Fine Gael?
No, we've made that quite clear. Both Fine Gael and ourselves have made it clear that there will be no pre-election arrangement between us, that we'll fight on the basis of our own policies, but that we will be advocating that there be transfers of votes between the two parties.
So there is to be no pre-election deal between Fine Gael and the Labour Party. But even so, most Irish farmers would view any government with Labour Party participation in it with extreme suspicion, indeed fear. And while the Labour Party and even Fine Gael might protest that these are fears held without any real foundation, nonetheless they exist. And we can rest assured that these are fears that will be exploited to the very full in a general election campaign by Fianna Fáil. Indeed, there are many Fianna Fáilers who believe that this traditional suspicion, fear of the Labour Party by Irish farmers is the opposition's Achilles heel, and Fianna Fáil's electoral trump card.
Very definitely. I think that's the feeling in Fine Gael, the Fine Gael supporters, that if they vote Fine Gael, they mightn't get Fine Gael. They might get a combination of Labour and Fine Gael. And there's a suspicion in Fine Gael support circles of the Labour Party's attitude towards land generally, and the position of farmers' wealth and so on. I think that's their biggest problem.
What will government strategy be then in the election as well as this?
I think twofold. One is to create confidence in the government and to seek the farmers' support for the government. And secondly, to ensure that the party organisation is 100%. And the importance of party organisation in rural constituencies, I can't emphasise enough, is crucial.
We will be seeking to regain, primarily, the Fine Gael votes that we lost the last time. If we do so, that in itself will have an enormous influence throughout the country in marginal seats. But we will also be seeking to make inroads into the what was previously a Fianna Fáil farming vote. And I think the best allies we have in this, in fact, are the Fianna Fáil party themselves, whose mishandling of the agricultural sector has, as you know, driven thousands of people onto the streets in Kilkenny yesterday, previously driven them onto the streets in Limerick. Farmers don't like marching. And as they themselves specified in Kilkenny, the reason that the problem has arisen is the mishandling by the present government of the agricultural situation.
At the last election, the IFA issued a detailed questionnaire to all the major parties. This apparently will not be repeated before the next election. No, this time the IFA approach will be even more direct.
We have put up a set of proposals to the government. We are awaiting a meaningful response from those set of proposals, and we, when we'll be leading up to the election, will be looking at the response in the form of promises or manifesto from either the government or the opposition parties. And we will be giving our response, our reaction to those responses. And it will be up to the individual voter then to deliver his feelings, taking account of what we need as a farming community at the moment.
There's no question of the IFA endorsing individual candidates across the political spectrum then, is there?
One of the fundamental platforms of our association since it was started, which we inherited from Auckland Firma, is being non-political and non-sectarian, and it is essential for us to remain so. And we will not at any time endorse any political party or candidate. We couldn't do so in relation to any election within the country, because it would be sowing the seeds of division within our own organisation, which I believe is one of the hallmarks of the success of our association.
I believe the farming vote is now decisive in this country. While the Dublin base of population is very important, at the same time there are enough marginal constituencies based in rural Ireland to change any government or to put in any opposition today.
There's no doubt about it that the farmers will have a substantial influence on the outcome of the next election. And indeed, in certain circumstances, the farmers' vote could be decisive.